Good evening. This is a public meeting of the Board of Education of Clark Public Schools. Adequate notice of this meeting has been given in accordance with PL 1975, Chapter 231, that a special notice was made in conformance with Section 13 of the Act.
We have a motion to return public?
Motion.
Ms. Guerrero and Mr. Smorl.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so at this time we'll do the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So do a roll call, please.
Ms. Apollonis?
Here.
Mr. Vesservinga?
Here.
Mr. Breedy? Ms. Harrison?
Here.
Ms. Guerrero?
Here.
Ms. Hickman?
Here.
Mr. Lewis?
Here.
Mr. May?
Present.
Mr. Smorl?
Here.
And Mr. Dunkersley.
Here.
Having 9 board members, we have a quorum.
All right, and at this time we'll open the floor to the public for agenda items only. So if there's anybody in the public that has a question about the agenda items, now would be the time to come up. If not, at the end we'll have non-agenda.
coming up.
So, if you could just come on up. Where should we do it, Paul? Does it matter?
Here,
Doesn't matter.
you know,
Maybe if you get in front of the camera.
Yeah, so we can get it for public to do
how's
it.
over there?
Can you hear him?
I can hear.
You can hear him
I
from
can speak
there?
very loud.
hear wherever.
If you could just state your name, your address.
Sure, Michael Schulman, 382 Carolina Street. Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I am here to speak, excuse me, using my phone, under Finance, item 13, which is the proposed resolution to resubmit the application for building additional classrooms here over at Henley. Myself and some of the folks here, obviously you've heard from before, as to the need for space, additional space at Henley. So yes, I'm very happy, and I think a lot of people are very happy that we're getting what seems to be 6 classrooms now and not just 4. And I hate to always be then the other side of the coin, but obviously this is contingent on the referendum passing. The problem is, as of today, we still do not have a copy of it. And it's very difficult as a parent to want to support this, which I do in theory, but as I've mentioned before, my daughter's in kindergarten. So the time this gets built, 3rd grader, maybe or maybe not, these classrooms even help her. And the question then becomes, what happens to the middle school and the high school? What are the improvements that are going to be put there, if any? What is the actual long-term plan? Because we've been told at these meetings, there isn't an issue with overcrowding. There isn't an issue with space. I think anecdotally that's been nullified. But while I'm going to suggest, obviously, to vote to approve this, and I know there's deadlines and timelines, I imagine that is why this meeting was put together on an urgent basis, at a unique time. That is what it is. I'm concerned that we are having a vote, a public discussion about this without the knowledge of the full referendum, right? Because I'm looking at saying 6 classrooms is great. What are we getting, or what are we not getting somewhere else potentially? Because there's going to be a finite amount in the referendum. So what is my daughter and other children maybe not getting at the middle school, or not getting at the high school because of this? So I don't know if someone can answer those questions and maybe lay out the actual long-term development plan that's actually addressed in the agenda item. Thank you.
So let me just start. So if this was specifically around 14, and Mr. Vizuzzo, Mr. Grandi, correct me wrong, but 14 is just the approval for the architect to...
I think it was 13.
13
was 13.
13.
13.
Yeah, we need a new board resolution to submit a new application because we're going from 4 classrooms to 6.
Right.
We tried to revise it based on your own application, but DOE came back and said, no, we need a brand new board resolution
Okay.
and a new application.
just for this one item of the classroom extension.
Add
Because of
2
the addition.
classrooms.
It's also important to remember, we're combining things here, okay? We've got a preschool program that we're looking at. Those classrooms, a portion of those classrooms are being allocated to the preschool program. What we're doing is, we're also looking at this and realizing that we've got an opportunity through the referendum to expand the space over there because we recognize there's a space issue at Henry. We also recognize there's a space issue at Valley, and part of the Valley solution is built into the additional classrooms at Henry. So,
Redistricting in essence.
yes, correct. So at this point, what we've done is, we've really kind of looked at this and did the best demographic study we could do at the time and said, okay, we believe that 6 classrooms at Henley alleviates our spacing issues. That being said, there's no crystal ball in this thing. Could we have a problem 4 or 5 years down the road? Absolutely. We don't think we will, but we could. We don't know how the demographics of the town are going to change. And so we've got this opportunity through the referendum. We're trying to be extremely, extremely sensitive to cost, because there's going to be a portion of the community that doesn't care what we're doing for the schools. They're going to say, I don't want my taxes to go up. I don't care. So we're trying to find a win-win to keep the taxpayers happy from a community perspective, meet the needs that we have. I know you haven't seen the details of the referendum. It's coming. We're going to be releasing it.
Our preliminary flyer is actually coming out tomorrow at 9 a.m.
Okay? What you're going to see is no frills. It's a lot of basic needs at this point in time. For anything that we would consider to be somewhat of a frill, we're going to try to find ways to address through our budget and be creative from that perspective. But we are trying to balance the community's I have to be financially responsible for, we as a committee, for what goes on in the town. So we're trying to balance the financial piece to this to what we need in terms of our school district. And so that's a challenge. And we believe we've gotten to a good spot by moving from, originally we had 4 classrooms, and kind of, reevaluated this and said, you know what? 4 classrooms is going to be really tight. We have an opportunity right now, let's do it now, to try to build some expansion and go from 4 to 6 to create some additional space. That's really the thought process behind it.
Just to add on to one thing, and respectfully, I'd just like to ask, we did do a lot of research and a lot of work into this to move it from 4 to 6. We actually went back to the drawing board. And one of the things that I would like to clarify and ask you maybe to clarify is, we didn't see the need for anything that you suggested, a pressing need for anything in Conf or in ALJ, that you had said, what are we going to miss if we do the 6 classrooms, what are we not getting? Is there something specific that you think that we're missing?
I can't speak, my daughter's in kindergarten. This is in essence the first time I've been in this room. It's more broadly speaking, and I'll stay up just to be respectful and address it. I know one of the comments was just, it's also to account for the preschool, which my understanding is going down this hallway.
That's a piece of it.
That's piece of it. Is there also now, there's going to be pre-K in Henley?
Well, I think if you've been following, I think that was always been a
Yes,
plan.
Right,
it's always been a
And
plan.
and there was some
And so those
pushback on what
classes
we
are
were
now
doing.
going to be put
Right.
there as well?
Right.
Right.
Okay. I can't comment as to what Conf or the high school need. I can tell you that, 'cause again, I'm not one of the seniors who's going to complain about the taxes maybe going up. I want the taxes to go up probably more than you're going to propose. Because I want this school to be ranked with our neighbors in ranking. And the way we get that is science labs and tech labs and all of those things that I know the school could get into the middle and high school in greater amounts, and other refurbishments. I mean, Mr. Lewis was in Henley, and I think this goes for all the schools that are architecturally older. It was a comment made. There was comments made from other people that have grown up in this town. I have not, obviously, as people know, but that the schools look the same as they did 20, 30, and 40 years ago. That some of the improvements may need to just be aesthetic, right? Some of the improvements need to just modernize some of these buildings, and some of it is making sure we have the space. The concern I have with the space is, I know that's not the plan, it's not required. Is the extra classrooms going to be because we're gonna get our art room and the music room?
Yeah, but,
Things
you know,
like that.
let me just, I don't want to interrupt you, because I just want you to understand one thing. The high school went through a lot of renovations. You're in a room right here, the media center. Okay. Valley and Henley are in dire need of renovation. It's more than basically rugs and paint. The 6 classrooms is more of, in my mind, the word desperation, to give them an art room, a music room, because when the parents spoke, you could identify having a 9-year-old, the 7-year-old sit there for 4 hours, for 5 hours. It's not healthy, it's not sensible. We're putting a lot of energy in those buildings because they're not up to par for me. So it starts in the elementary. It starts down below in Henley and Valley. Henley's population is bigger, and we got to redistrict and kind of go through what our kindergarten numbers, because you want to keep your first grade not at 30 or at 20. So there's a lot of pieces that go into it, and to me, the referendum is going to get a bigger taste in Henley. Valley has their issues. The middle school and the high school don't have enrollment problems of spacing. This is a very big high school for 7 and change. So kind of going through it, rather than moving a 6th grade out and doing all the different things, X amount of rooms are designated for the pre-K. Pre-K brings in revenue, and it keeps basically parents in the community of not going to other places because it's a joint effort. And yet, to me, it's in the plan of an art room, music. That's good for 2nd grade, 3rd, and not being music on a cart, art on a cart, to get these kids out. And when it's cold, they can't go out. All those things meant something. And then when you go in the building, it's the same building when my kids were there in 3rd grade, 4th grade, 2nd grade. I'm looking around, and it's the same. So to me, I think we, as a building and grounds board, have to put the energies there. And that referendum, it's got to get better, so we get them to the middle school, and they don't migrate out with test scores and pick all these other schools, and we don't get them. And we lose those, and we don't want to lose anybody. It costs enough to live. Why pay X amount of dollars to Union Catholic or anywhere? So to me, I personally went there, and I turned around and said, you're right, it's the same. My attitude is we're going to make it better. It's going to maybe take your son or daughter to 2nd or 3rd grade, but it's going to be better. And that's the selling point. You sell in the elementary.
So, Mr. Shulman, let me say it this way to you. We heard you guys loud and clear on
Yes,
the space issue.
appreciate, I think this is
Heard you
actually,
loud
this
and clear.
conversation,
What-
more helpful in defining
Right.
what they're going to be. And I appreciate Mr. Lewis's comment, I heard it interrupt, that some of this is a motivation, that if we have better facilities and the
Well-
appropriate sizes, we aren't gonna lose those students, because I think it is important that to make sure the middle school and the high school rankings stay competitive by keeping those students here.
So let me just add, what I would say to you is what we've done over the years, okay? Again, there's only limited dollars, okay? We've made a decision to invest pretty significantly in the high school. This has been the jewel for all intents and purposes. And I grew up in this town, I went to this high school, I've lived in this community pretty much my whole life. Anybody who tells you that the high school today looks like it did years ago, if they're talking about the high school, they're out of their minds, okay? The changes have been enormous in terms of what we've done. We recognize, though, that while we invested in the high school, obviously, we weren't able to pay as much attention to the middle school and the elementary schools, which is why we've got this referendum, because we know there are things that have to be done in those buildings. Basic things, the roofs have to be replaced, things of that nature, okay? So that's a lot of what this is about. And again, we've made, our goal is to get the elementary and the middle schools as solid as we can get them. But this is going to remain the jewel. This, because everybody, at the end of the day, eventually ends up here. And so, that's the approach that we're trying to take. We've put a lot of thought into this in terms of, trying to address the spacing issue. We feel comfortable trying to balance cost against what we're doing for the schools, because at the end of the day, here's the other issue, Mr. Shulman. I'd love to sit here and tell you, we're going to give you everything you want. We're going to give it all to you. But at the end of the day, can we get it through a vote?
Yeah. But I think
Chances are pretty slim that will happen.
Yeah.
So we've got to try to find a way to get what we need and win in the vote. And that's what we're trying, now, you may not agree with everything we're doing. You may feel, hey, you know what, a tax increase is okay, but we've taken a different approach. We're trying to get the best of both worlds. Sure. And that's kind of where we're
And
at.
also to that point, I just want to say, something that I think Mr. Lewis brought up, the referendum will do those roofs and those things that maybe aren't as flashy.
Sure.
But needed, clearly. But it opens up the idea that in future years, we can account for other projects through our own budget. And I think, and I have on a personal level, he's going to be in 3rd grade. My youngest will be in 3rd grade at Henley, so he probably will not reap the benefits of the music room and the art room. So I understand kind of what you're saying about, your daughter. But I do truly believe that once we get these projects underway, we'll be able to kind of take a look at other projects, and we won't need like a vote for a referendum. If we can get these large projects, a roof is needed, right? We can't have our kids sitting in classroom and being rained on. So if we can get these projects accomplished under this vote, then I do think in the next, and we do have a plan, like we talk about, after this is done, as a board, we talk about what's our next project, and we're always thinking about 2, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. So I want you to know that if there are things that are coming up, we are actively talking about them. We get reports all the time about the states of our buildings and the grounds, and we actively talk about what will we do in the future so that we can get us to the place where we need to be so we're competitive with our neighbors, because that's where we want to be.
I just want to say one last thing so you get this, because you're bringing up a point, because it's important. We as a board do a pretty lousy job communicating the way we need to communicate. We're not so good at it. But I'm going to tell you a personal story. I have ordinary children. They're ordinary. So I'm not going to sit there and sell them out that they're stars. But I'm going to tell you a story that is kind of true. So I listened at the meeting, and I went back. So you talk about science labs, arts. You got a real good music teacher over there. They're building a nice music program, on and on. So I sat and went through this, okay? So you try to sit back, and when your kids are 3 years old and 4 years old, and you try to figure out what they really like, what they're interested in. So going through it real quickly as it went through, one of my kids was in the middle school, and he kind of was leaning to science a little bit. Not athletic at all, never spent a second on anything athletically or anything. He was purely school. So he went through Comf, and then he decided about high school, where he wanted to go, what he wanted to do. So going through high school here, he ran into a couple science teachers, labs. He wound up, and believe me, ordinary, nothing more. He wound up enjoying physics. He got a couple real good teachers that supported him. And picking school, he got scholarship money to Lafayette. He graduated from Lafayette with a physics degree. Not bragging on him, stick with the word ordinary. Simple as that. So kind of going through that whole process, I didn't pay enough attention to what his desires were. But it wasn't athletics. It wasn't basically picking up an instrument. It was science, 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 going in early morning for AP stuff and on. And I sit back now, and I listen to people, and they think we're all pompous aloof, and we're all the same. And I want Johnson to be non-political, helping their children to get the best they can get, no matter what it is. And we didn't have a music program. We got a real good one. There should be an art room. There's people that we don't even know. They're 7 years old and 9 years old, and they're gifted at something. And we should give them every opportunity. So looking at that was my own experience. And trust me, I stick with the word ordinary. I know what they are,
Gosh, I
and
hate
it's
your
as
son
simple
so
as
much.
that. They know a little bit more about that than I do. So I think that, so what you say, I kind of get. And I just want to say this for the board. We need to communicate to the community better. We need to let them know what we're trying to do and say that we're in it for everybody and not in it for St. Joe's Metuchen and Union Catholic and all these other places. Let's get our homegrown successes right here.
All right, I appreciate all the back and forth and feedback, and again, very happy we're putting all the money into Hadley.
Right.
Okay, so with that, is there any other comments from the public on agenda items? Okay, so moving on then, we'll move to personnel items 1 through 12. Can I get a motion? Ms. Harrison, followed by Ms. Hickman. Any questions or comments? Roll call on that, please.
Ms. Akalonis?
Yes.
Mr. Bensilvania?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Mr. Guerrero?
Abstain on 1, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12. Yes on the rest.
Ms. Hickman?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis? Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
And Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, and then we have finance items 13 to 17. Can I get a motion? Mr. May, followed by Mr. Smurl. Questions or comments on those items? Roll call, please.
Ms. Akalonis?
Yes.
Mr. Bensilvania?
Yes.
Ms. Harrison?
Yes.
Ms. Guerrero?
Abstain on 13, 14, 16, 13, 14, and 17, and yes on the rest.
Thank you. Ms. Hickman?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Smurl?
Yes.
And Mr. Douglas?
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, so at this time, we'll have a hearing of the public for items that were not on the agenda. So if there's any topics you'd like to discuss that were not on the agenda, now would be the time. Come up, state your name, your address, and you have 3 minutes.
You could go
You
here.
go over there.
You could go there.
All right.
Phil Draghi, 47 Post Road, Park, New Jersey. I'd like to have an answer on whether the board is still going to go along with Governor Bill Murphy's directives, law, that says a parent does not have control over his children as far as sex changes, because I believe the law says that the parent has to go along with what the state says. Now, President Trump came out and said that it shall not be done that way. The parent does have control over a child that wants to have a sex change, say a physical sex change, an operation. So, and that's an executive order from the President of the United States, which trumps, pun intended, a state order. The federal order, executive order, trumps Phil Murphy's state order. Because that's the way it was made by Phil Murphy also. So, what is your answer? And you don't have to worry, because even if Phil Murphy wants to decides to arrest anybody for going against him, I'm sure President Trump will pardon that person probably the same day. So my question is, what is your answer? Are you going to obey the President of the United States on these trans laws that Phil Murphy made? You're going to obey the President of the United States, or are you going to obey Phil Murphy's laws on transgender children?
Mr. Grandy?
We're going to continue to give our parents full autonomy over their children, as we have always done in the Clark schools. That's something we've done prior to President Trump, and something we plan to do during President Trump and after President Trump. Always give our parents complete and total autonomy over their children.
Over the children.
Yep. You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Dragy. Are there any other comments for non-agenda items? Anybody else in the public would like to speak? All right, so seeing none, at this time, can I get a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Have a good night.